it's a great time to be alive. The gatekeepers have been removed.
They really have. They have. We've become our own ability to be our own gatekeeper, I'll say.
Right.
But the only thing is now, I think, getting more education on how to navigate those waters.
True.
Which brings me to our guest.
Our guest, he is
our guest today.
He's killing the game on many, many different levels. He's got his finger in this pool and he's moving this and he's shaking that. And he is the ultimate perfect guest for making it.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Making It. My name is Kenan Cooley and I'm with
Alvin Chia. Hey, Kenan, it's so good to see you today.
Good to see you, sir. You know what I've been thinking, Alvin? We're old enough to have this conversation. The idea that so many things now, because I was listening to a podcast recently and I thought, you know what? Back in the day, there wouldn't even be a podcast. Right. It would only be radio. So you had to go to a station and, find the station and it had to be at a certain time. It was going to be on demand or anything. It was always going to be at 10 o'clock, this station, that person, whatever.
Right.
And now the idea that you can do so much with podcasts. I mean, I looked at even just TV and film podcasts. There was over almost 900 podcasts just on that.
Wow.
Just on that one subject.
And some people are making millions of dollars through their podcasts. It's not just the basement thing anymore. It's like, this guy just got signed and he's killing the game.
Yes. And the good part is a lot more opportunity for content in different perspectives. True. Because sometimes you can kind of feel like, okay, this on-air host or whatever has their perspective, but that's not the only way to think in the whole wide world. Because I guess really now the whole world is available to us,
Yeah. Back in the day, they used to have magazines, very specific magazines that would, cater to this audience, Guns and Ammo, dog lovers and Corvette trader. Now you have your own podcast where you can talk to people and hear them and connect in real time and get hyper specialized of the areas of your interest and follow it and pursue it. It's a great time to be alive. The gatekeepers have been removed.
They really have. They have. We've become our own ability to be our own gatekeeper, I'll say.
Right.
But the only thing is now, I think, getting more education on how to navigate those waters.
True.
Which brings me to our guest.
Our guest, he is
our guest today.
He's killing the game on many, many different levels. He's got his finger in this pool and he's moving this and he's shaking that. And he is the ultimate perfect guest for making it. So without further ado.
Yep, go ahead.
Let's welcome Mr. Gavin Montgomery.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you both. I appreciate it so much.
We've been talking about just quickly how the evolution, these are my qualifications right here to talk about the following subject. But the evolution of the industry, how we've gone from pure radio to now hyper specialized podcasts and different things like that. And how there's so many people that used to just, be alone in their world. Now they have someone to speak to them. They can connect in real time to their community. And it is a great time to be alive because the gatekeepers have largely been removed.
Without question. I think that time and that era have come and gone, and this next generation of broadcaster has matriculated in such a way that the devices and the applications are at your fingertips. And I can honestly confess that I feel like my membership to AARP has been earned.
It's legitimate.
It is real.
It was not a misaddressed envelope.
It's true. I have my AARP card. It's true.
I got one too.
We all do, unfortunately. Well, you've been in the industry for over 30 years, so I guess, do a little math and you have to kind of come up with that, right?
That is true. Yeah. I am guilty. I confess.
Tell us a little bit about your rise to the top in the industry, because now you're with iHeart. So I know that you've done a few things along the way.
I have. Let's see. When I started out of high school. And a true story. Before we even get started, let me just say to both of you, thank you very much for the invite.
Oh, no problem.
Very welcome.
It has been a long journey, but I am appreciative of the journey. And to have two stalwarts like yourselves to in some way appreciate the work that has been done or is being done. I appreciate that. It says that the labor has not been in vain. And so thank you. Thank you.
We're here to
much.
celebrate you, Gavin. Welcome. Welcome.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So when I started, true story, I started in just out of high school working internships at local radio stations. And there came a time where I was at home during the summer, unemployed, freshly out of college, and teaching in DC public schools. And I won some tickets to a Patti LaBelle concert. And I was elated. I'm going to see Miss Patti, right?
Yeah.
And so I called, and the program director at the time, his name was Kevin Koufax. And he was on the air doing the evening show. And Kevin said to me, true story, he said, "You sound like you could work in radio. When you come to pick up your tickets, come see me. Let's talk." And I was teaching over in DC public schools. And so long story short, I wasn't thinking about no radio. I was going to get them tickets. We was going to see Miss Patti.
Right.
I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. I'm moving on.
Yeah.
And so I got to the radio station, and the young lady at the front desk, she said to me, "He's been waiting for you. Go down the hall, first door on the left, and just knock before you go in."
Wow.
And so I did. I went down the hallway. I knocked on the door. And when I went in, he said, "Listen, I've got this shift and it needs a voice. And I'd like to offer it to you, right here on the spot." And
that's crazy.
My ill-prepared, arrogant self said, "Listen, I got a job, bro. I'm teaching English. I'm gonna educate this next generation." Microphone.
I'm good.
What? Microphone. What?
Yeah.
And so he wrote these numbers down on a small piece of paper and slid it across to me. And I picked the little sticky note up, and I literally almost fell out of the chair. Because it was triple what I was making as
a teacher,
as an educator. And so very quickly I changed my tone with no experience whatsoever.
Funny what changes it, right?
It was the greatest dose of humility, right? Wow. And so I took that job, and that night I started on the air with a segment called Moments in Love.
Wow.
Moments in Love.
That same night you picked up the tickets, you were on air?
He sat with me and he did the board, and all I had to do was do the breaks. The problem came in when I had to figure out timing and how the clock and stuff worked. Because by then, we were using carts, right?
Yeah, right.
So they had the old 8-track carts and things, and the pots on the board they were knobs; they weren't sliders.
Absolutely.
So it took me a minute to kind of get that down. But once I got the clock, within 24, 48 hours, I had a show, and you couldn't tell me nothing. And so that started.
Wow.
And then I moved from there, and I ended up in the DC metropolitan area. And that's really where my career began to flourish. I ended up working for Clear Channel at first, and then I went over to Radio One. I ended up over at BET with my own show. And from there, it just flourished. I went down to Tennessee. I worked over at Dollywood with Dolly Parton for a number of years. As the announcer over there at Dollywood. And so we had a great time. And, some odd years later, here we are at iHeart doing what we do. So it's been a good journey.
The best thing about that story, though, is the angel in that brother that saw it in you, and you didn't even see it in you. And he says, "Listen, I got a vision. I see something for you, and I'm going to push you until you see what you can do for yourself."
And he did. He did. There were quite a few nights where I had no idea what to do in certain situations. Callers call in because you are their lifeline. You are their emotional lifeline via the medium of the music. And at the time, even though we were doing R&B music, the responsibility of being attentive to the spirit of the listener, right? Was embedded in me. It was important to me. So to me, that goes back to those Christian roots, that spiritual foundation that my father, who was pastoring even as we speak, laid those boards upon my soul and said, if you're going to walk this thing, if you're going to really speak about this thing, and if God is all that you claim that he is to be, you have a responsibility. You are accountable to these people and their souls. And God is going to ask you to give an account at some point for what you said or what you didn't say, what you did or what you didn't do. And I took that seriously and still do to this day. So it is important to me.
Well, question though. So one of the things you said that kind of struck with me, which is, kind of what we started with, that you had to know the pulse of your audience.
I did.
And back then, you didn't get a chance to kind of get the live feeds or the, the way we have the ability today. So what did you have to do back then compared to now to kind of stay in touch?
I think it's one of the key ingredients that is missing in this modern day of radio and technology, right? Technology gives us what we call that immediate gratification, that microwave moment where you can capture or capsulize it in a video, a 30-second clip, a 10-second clip, and you can upload it, and it's phenomenal, and it goes around the world. But then previously, we had to actually go out and put our feet to the concrete. We had to put boots on the ground and go into the communities, into the businesses.
Right.
We had to go meet these people where they were. So holidays and food baskets and all of the different events, Mother's Day and those things, we had to go to the people. So we did live remotes. We were in the promotion truck, 3 or 4 days a week after our shift. That was required. That was a part of your contractual agreement.
Oh, wow. That's
promotion
awesome.
was included. And in the beginning, as an announcer, because there's a difference between an on-air personality, an anchor, and an announcer, right? In the beginning, it wasn't about being compensated for the entertainment value of the personality coming to your business. It was merely the responsibility of going to meet the people who listen to you every single night and putting a face with the voice, and putting faces with voices of the thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that called in and that wanted to dedicate songs to their loved ones, or remember the memories of their parents, or even to propose to their significant other. So it was important to be out in the street, in the community with the businesses. You got a chance to meet the business owners as well as the people who actually supported and made sure that your paycheck was going to be deposited at the end of the month.
It almost sounds like what a politician would say. You are the voice of the people. You got to know who your constituents are. You got to get out there to be able to speak as they want you to speak.
Listen, it was important. It was a service to the community, but it was valuable because it gave you a perspective of humanity that maybe you couldn't get behind the microphone in a booth. It's almost like and Alvin, you know this, when you are in a booth with your brothers and you are creating harmony, there's a fellowship that's there, right? You feel those bottoms, those tops, those middles, those highs, those lows. But when it's just you, it's in your head. You got to but when you're one-on-one and you see them and that movement is there, somebody closes their eyes, you embrace that chord, that seventh, that ninth, that minor, it's something to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me, okay, so you were, I guess the term is, jumped into this new industry and you left education behind in a split. How long did it take you to understand the new topography? You're like, okay, now I want to achieve in this area, and okay, what is this about voiceovers? I want to do this, and program director, I want to do this, and I want to do. And how long did it take you to kind of reorient it and tell you where you wanted to go or needed to be?
As soon as my rent was due. As soon as the car note was due and the rent was due, and for me, it was. I don't want to say it was organic because it was strategic. I have to confess, it was strategic. And I worked alongside for many years over at WPGC with Donnie Simpson. Worked alongside with many other great on-air anchors and radio personalities. But I remember having a conversation with Donnie in the studio one morning, and he said to me, Gavin, you don't know what you are about to become. He said, but what you need to really learn is the business side. He said the entertainment side is going to come and go, but it is a shadow of death waiting in the wings if you don't have command of the business and the show, right? The show and the business, they go hand in hand. And he said to me very quickly, your gift will make room for you, but you must also know the instructions of the gift. If you misuse it, if you don't command it properly, if you don't dispense it accordingly, it will do to you the very worst that it can do. So you have to learn both sides of the fence. So contract writing, negotiating, union stipulations, and all of that stuff was important. And so I had
on your own behalf, or do you have
my own behalf? Initially on my own behalf. And I think that's another key point too, is that also this new generation coming up, they don't really have the nuances for, I guess, contract negotiation and the hard work that was kind of laid before them, because they've got a team of folks that go in and work out the issues or the numbers for them ahead of time. But then to me, it works against them, because 2 or 5 years later, you realize you're in debt to whoever, and now you've got to pay that back, but you've got this $5 million home that you're living that you don't own.
Right.
Yeah.
All these other bells and whistles. So it was it was strategic, but it was also a process for me. I had to figure it out.
I love it.
Yeah.
What do you feel like now that you've progressed to your with SiriusXM now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's more digital. So what have you done to kind of like still keep connected, as you spoke to earlier, in your audience? Because like you said, digital now, you don't have to go out in the streets, so to speak, because now the streets are online.
And your local community is now a worldwide community.
It is. I will be honest and tell you, and I don't share this often with folks out loud. My wife and I, we keep a very private circle, and I tell her everything, of course, because she's my rib. But I said to her some time ago, my heart's desire is really to do this sort of setup where we have all minds from all walks of life with respect to broadcasting and being on air, music, entertainment, and being able to unfold those infotainment conversations that maybe had not been addressed before. Dr. Bobby Jones did it in a certain vein, but there are layers to this, right? And I believe that there's still a place out there for that format with the right mix of people. It's almost like it would be The View with a spiritual side.
I love
if
it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Something edgy, something that is not boxed in by dogma or by aology of any sorts, but it would offer infotainment and inspiration and encouragement to those who are watching around the globe. And she said to me, then what are you waiting for? You're waiting for someone to come and knock on the door and give it to you.
Right.
Your career hasn't been that way. You've had to get out there and go do it. What are you waiting for? And so I challenge myself every day, because she asks me the hard questions and requires me to think about those truths. What am I waiting on?
Yeah.
And I think some of it is being fearful of the new dynamic of broadcasting, because it can come in with a sweeping thing and take you over. And the next thing you know is, it's all over. And then you're starting from zero. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to start all over again. But to your question about how I feel about what I'm doing at Sirius, Sirius is a big beast in the industry. And I think with all of the great work that they've done and they continue to do with Jingle Ball and all the money and things that are being donated, I still believe there's a place for being able to speak directly to the heart of the people, the citizenship. And I think that area has still yet been tapped. I think we're speaking to all the superficial stuff that people are looking for. We're throwing money at it. We're throwing cars and homes and trips around to different exotic. We're doing all of that stuff. But when the stuff gets quiet and the receipts are in and nobody's home but you and your soul, then what?
Yeah. You said something that really struck a nerve and it hit a chord with me. Talking about greatness and how you said, what your wife said, what are you waiting for? I remember one of the first moments of clarity for me was when I realized that no one ever gives you permission to be great.
Yeah.
That phone call never comes. Alvin, you should be doing more. Kenan, girl, you should be really doing more. Gavin, I don't know what you're waiting for. That doesn't come. You just have to know it in and of your spirit and be able to push with faith and achieve what it is you're supposed to achieve.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the truth. Now, when you speak to the next generation, how do you point them? Do you point them to, because you have a lot of flavoring of spirituality, and I know a lot of our leaders now point to money. Do you point, how are you leading them? How do you inspire them? How do you give them direction?
I think for me, it is a recipe that is filled with truth. It is a recipe that is filled with the hope that what you're chasing after. I think the ingredient that I most want to give to them is character. If you are chasing after the dollar, you'll never fully reach it, because it will never be enough. After
Right.
you have the $1 million home, you're going to want the $500,000 Bentley. And we ain't even got to FICO and you know how Uncle Sam is going to chew up that money. We ain't even got to that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality for me is that if you chase after the money, you will always be running.
Right.
But if you chase after the integrity and the true authenticity of what your heart's desire is to really genuinely sow back into the people. For me, I'm a servant, right? And a servant means you have to be willing to serve.
Right.
Serve the people. When you go to a restaurant, your waiter comes to the table and he asks you a plethora of questions. What's your drink order? What's your appetizer? What your main entree is going to be? What your dessert is? What your drink is going to be? Because he wants to serve you the full experience. And for me, I believe that you need to be able to serve the spirit as well as the community in that same fashion. Serve them with the desire that you want them to have the full experience of what you're bringing to the table, your greatness, right? And so I believe that being a full onboard servant is what steers them the best. The money will come if you serve. The accolades will come if you serve. And for me, I look at the great names, whether it's Malcolm or King or Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, or any of the other great names that have been on this planet and done their due time. It's about service.
Love it.
It's about service. So that's what I steer them toward.
So at Sirius, your genre that you cover is gospel, if I'm correct?
No, it's quite minimal. At Sirius, I'm on air doing traffic and news, but I get the gift of being able to convey that information in a way or in a style that is unique to my own. Everybody doesn't deliver that information the way that I do. And you'll have different people that deliver it different ways. Now, I've been at Sirius for a number of years. I'm on air over at a plethora of affiliates. So if you ask Alexa, especially if you live in the DMV in the morning, Alexa, oh boy, there's Alexa. If you ask Alexa what the news or the traffic is in the DMV in the morning, 8 to 9 times out of 10, you'll get me giving it to you up and down the beltway. And so that's a privilege to be able to do that. My work with them.
So is this set up, Gavin? Is this set up in your home?
Yes.
I love it.
I am in my home studio.
Yeah,
I love it. And you send out your stuff to everybody, all the subscribers.
I do, all the affiliates, straight from the house. So every weekday morning at about 3 a.m., I'm up. And I start my day gathering entertainment news, local stories, traffic. And so I'm looking at cameras and things all around the Beltway as well, from Baltimore, from Maryland into Virginia. I can see all the way down to Philly, but from Philly all the way down, I can see, and even into Atlanta. But I grab that information along the Beltway, that 95 corridor, 495, 695, and that information from around the globe, and we dispense it to the affiliates. So whether it's Radio One or the Sirius family of stations, I'm on air. I'm doing what I do.
So how did you, that's so forward thinking. How did you say, I need my lab at home?
It was twofold. When I initially interviewed at Sirius, I said to them, listen, I could do this from home. I was already set up to do it at home. I'd already had my equipment, and I've been, doing voiceover work and stuff from home for years now. It was nothing new. Before the pandemic hit, all my friends and contemporaries were calling saying, you got to tell me how you did it. How did you do it? Right. And I just went out and bought the equipment. I plugged in everything, and I was doing stuff from home, sending it out to different clients. It just happened to take off.
Right.
And so therein lies that greatness that was yet to be defined. Right. So I just did it. And when I initially was brought on board over at Sirius, I told them I could do it at home. And they gave me all kinds of reasons why it wouldn't be fiscally responsible, and it just would be too expensive, and it doesn't make sense to do. And about 6 weeks later, the pandemic hit.
Oh, wow.
And everybody in the building was squirreling, trying to get equipment, microphones, laptops, and
Sweetwater was just completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, they were shut down. I contacted my buddy over there. He called me and he was like, man, we don't have mice, let alone computers. We don't have anything. Wow. But long story short, I was already set up and ready to go. And they were very accommodating, and everything I asked for, they overnighted it to me. So I've been at home, pushing buttons, and my wife and I often compete for breaks in between me doing traffic or news and, her being up in the morning. She works for DOJ. So she's up in the morning, doing what she's doing. She works in cybersecurity. And so we're often competing between meetings and traffic reports.
Sure.
So I'm like, babe, are you finished? And she's like, yeah, are you finished? Like, okay, well, I'm going to get coffee. You want something? Yeah, bring me something to eat.
That's us.
So we share that space, but it works good for us.
I think the pandemic has actually shown people a new way to do things because, like you said, or you've shown that you really don't have to be in the office to get that what you do out because everything's digital. People are everywhere. You can be global at the same time. You can be local at this point.
I think that's the joy for me, is being able to do that. And even if when it comes down to doing voiceover work or commercials for different sponsors, things of that sort, I can do all of that work right here, in the palm of my hand. I can record a track. And now even on my iPhone, depending on what model you have, I can record a dry voiceover track while I'm out and about. I can clean it up, send it back to myself. When I get home, I'll cut and paste, do what I need to do, add the bells and whistles. And within an hour, I can send that same track out. And you never know, I recorded it while I was in the car on my way coming around the Beltway. You'd never know.
Right.
What do you enjoy the most of all of the hats you got on? This one comes in your email, like, all right, let me jump on this.
It's two things for me, my friend. I will be honest and tell you, my first love is being on air. I love the camera. I love the microphone, and not in a hoggish sort of way or braggadocious or arrogant way, but I love being able to communicate with the people. I like being able to reach out and touch them through this medium, to let them know that I'm just like you. I go through stuff just like you do. I have bad days just like you do, but I overcome it. And if I can, you can. And this is how I did it. The second thing is I really enjoy the production value in being able to put together programs like this or that content, right? I enjoy that. That is really what makes me smile at the end of the day. As crazy as it can be, I like piecing it together. I like the bells and whistles of the sound effects, and even this morning I downloaded all kinds of new drum track stuff with GarageBand. And I don't use GarageBand often, but today I was fooling around and playing with it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going, wait till I finish this interview. I'm going back and hit them. But I love that. That is where
you're creative at heart.
I am. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is.
That's great.
That's good. Actually, I was thinking that your trajectory has got a lot of. You're also able to do stuff on your own, right? Because you're an entrepreneur. So
absolutely,
that gives you a lot. The things that you have learned, I guess, from the past and in your current status, it gives you a lot of opportunities for your future, right? It sounds like you have a lot of things you can do so that you can actually just do stuff on your own as well, right?
I think one of the things that I was really specific about this time around, because maybe about 12, it's been more than that, about maybe 15, 20 years ago, I was stricken with a neuromuscular disorder that came out of nowhere. I was at the height of my career, really doing big things and really having a great time in the industry. And I, for whatever reason, could not manage to get up and down the stairs without falling or falling over, losing my balance. It was like vertigo. And like most men do, when you have some sort of thing that goes wrong that you already know, okay, this is a major problem. You file it, you put it away, you dismiss it. And I did that.
Don't have time to deal with that now. We'll get to that later.
We got to pay this today. Got to get this done. This is on the book. Got it. And I continued to do that. And it got to the point where I could not get the fork from the plate to my mouth without dropping the food. The tremors in my hands and my legs were so bad. And I
let it go to that level?
I did.
Wow.
It was like the tremors in my legs were so bad, Kenan, that I looked like a Clydesdale horse. That's just how bad my legs were tremoring. And so I went back and forth to the doctors, and these are some of the greatest minds over at Hopkins, Johns Hopkins here in Baltimore. And they all looked at each other, scratching their heads, trying to figure out what on earth it was. And long story short, my physician at the time called me and said, listen, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but effective immediately, I don't want you going back to work or driving or doing anything until we know what this is. And so all of that energy, mobility, exposure came to a screeching halt. within a phone call.
Wow.
And when I tell you, I was angry at God and the heavens, we had some conversations.
Yeah.
I shared some things that I can confess were not holy. I had to let God know I was angry, and he let me know, I know you're angry. I see that, but this will be for your greater good. I just didn't see it in that time. And so for more than 15 years, I was in that wheelchair, unable to speak, unable to walk. And it took only an act of God and the heavens, a miracle itself, to really get me back to where I am now. To have complete mobility, the ability and the activity of my limbs, to be able to speak fluently. And I still have,
that is a miracle.
It is.
Did it affect your the muscular ability to communicate as well?
It did. That muscular system between the brain, the jaw, the tongue, the lips, those intercostal muscles, all of those things I had to rebuild again, because that ability to speak on the fly, from singing, you build those muscles up, those diaphragmatic breathing muscles, they build up. And so you have sustainability and breathing. And I didn't have that I had to build all of that up all over again.
Yeah. Did they ever discover what it was?
It is in the Parkinson's family, but it is a combination of things, but it is in the Parkinson's family. Is what they, finally came up with. And so here we are, some odd years later. I still am dealing with spasms and pain and things of that sort. But I will say this, I have been blessed. I am grateful to sit in the seat that I do, to be able to share with the masses the little bit that I do share. And I will even go further and say, of all the accolades and things that I've earned over the years, from working with Dolly Parton and traveling the globe and being in the Smithsonian and all of that great stuff, none of it compares to being able to wake up each morning with the assurance that I'm okay. I'm good. And if I don't wake up tomorrow morning, if I go to meet my maker, I believe in the city of my soul, I've lived a full life and I'm okay.
Beautiful.
And I'm good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. What an amazing testimony. That's just
because I'm listening to your voice and your demeanor and your body. I'm like, I would have never guessed. I'm just blown by the whole thought that you went through that much with your whole body. That's amazing to me. But it also speaks to the mind too, because your mind was still there. You still had that mindset to get better.
I was hungry for something different. And, one thing my wife often says to me is, she speaks truth to me often. And I've never been in a relationship where I have had a mate or a significant other speak this level or this depth of truth to me. This is why I know that she is my soulmate, because she speaks truth to me in a way that not only am I able to receive it, but I make the choice of my own volition to do something about it. Whereas before, people can tell you things about yourself and you'll dismiss it or you'll find a way to justify it, right? But in this dynamic, when she speaks truth to my soul and I feel it, those cages of self-preservation, they rattle. And it's like, you have to do something different to get a different result. Otherwise, it is the very definition of insanity. And I don't want to close my eyes with that kind of insanity going on in my brain. I want to be able to release it, grow from it, and move on to the next dimension, and do so with people who love me and want the best for me. And so I try to do my best to keep my circle small and surround myself with those who have, my best interest at heart.
Well, none of us are going anywhere. We're going to give you at least 40, 50 more years. So if you have 40, 50 more years, where is it that you would like to go? Perfect world, like, Gavin needs to do this. He wants to do this, but this is where I want to go. What is that vision?
That national platform is always something that we shoot for. But it is a slippery slope. And I often toggle between wanting to be on that national stage under that spotlight, because it is scrutiny. And I have been very close to that spotlight before. And I can tell you it burns and it leaves scars, it singes. And that smell of smoke lingers, right? And I don't know if I want to experience it to that degree anymore. I think I like being with the troops. I like boots on the ground. So where do I want to be in that time frame? I want to be amongst the people. I want to be amongst those people who have afforded me the privilege to be in their homes and in their cars these last some odd 30 years, those people who speak life into me, those people who encourage me and build me up. And then on the other side, I want to be with my family. I'm a family man. I love being at home. I'm a homebody. Oftentimes you can find us here, or you'll find me in Sam's. I'm in one of the two places. I'm somewhere in between.
You're not
but
in
I
the
enjoy
streets.
that. No, I'm not in those streets. I'm not in those streets. I'm in the aisles over at Sam's trying to find a deal. That's where I'm at. Paper towels and toilet paper.
That is awesome.
Well, your story and you have been an amazing blessing. I really have appreciated your time, your education on how, your industry and really just your testimony. I really have appreciated your sharing with us today.
Well, I thank you both. You both honor me with the kindness and the kind words. I appreciate you both. You have no idea what your labor means to the industry and to old heads like me. I appreciate the work that you do and the labor, because it opens the roadway and the gateway for that next generation to come in and continue the work.
Absolutely.
And so the work that you and Alvin have both done is incredible. It is very much needed. And let me just say, one day soon, maybe I'll have a Grammy somewhere on my mantelpiece.
I know, right?
Right now I got Wakanda on there, but
they're
it
for
ain't
rent
no
cheap.
Grammy. But
They're for rent.
What'd you say, for rent?
They're for rent cheap. Get you a good price on them.
Well, they mean something, and so does your work. So we appreciate you both so much. Thanks for the opportunity. What I really want is to sit on the panel with you two. That's really what I want to do. Come on, let's put the show together and call it a day. Let's put a set together.
All right.
Good
happen. If they on the internet, talking about Sweetie or in the rest of the crew, certainly we can come on and talk about something.
Talking about something positive.
That's right.
True.
All the people we know, we can do this. We can do this.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely take note of that and file that away. Okay, that's a good word. That's a good word. Game recognizes game. That's why we all see what we're all trying to do. Again, Gavin, thank you so much. Much blessings, love, and appreciation to you and your family. I know higher heights you're going to achieve, and just thank you for being that shining light in our community.
It is my pleasure. I thank you both. You all be blessed. I look to see you soon.